That's awesome, man. You get going, and I'm just loving it over here. A lot of great content right there. A lot of great content. Jake, do you find that a lot of talk, when we start purposely using our legs to make those saves down low, I feel like the younger goalie's got to get padded up a little bit. Would you agree?
So I mentioned using the softballs for any type of drill where you're incorporating that more. I think that is like an awesome time if you're using those softballs, you're not going to be dealing with that pain down low.
That's true.
And, if you're also worried, if you're a younger goalie, also feel free to pad up. Especially, I joke with when I had goalies who came in and they trained and they said, I love playing the high arc. And then I'd shoot a low shot and they get hit in the leg and they, really complain. I'd be like, well, if you want to play a high arc, unfortunately, part of the reality is you're going to get hit more in your body. And especially down low, you're going to get hit in the legs. So it's probably not a bad idea to pad up again. The advantage, I would say, is of training with those softer balls, doing a drill like this, is you think about it, if you're repping it out, you're getting hit hundreds of times with those soft, like low shots, you're getting hit hundreds of times with the legs. Use the softballs, not a huge effect. And then if you're just doing it in games or in practices, that's maybe 10 times you're getting hit a week, right? So there's a big difference between training with the hard balls, because if you're doing that, you're getting hit hundreds of times with the legs. And then you're probably never going to even want to use your legs down low when you get in the game. So training with those softies or padding up is also a good idea. I agree.
Yeah, and in the games, your adrenaline's running. I mean, I remember getting hit in the leg, like crank shot in a game, and not even feeling it, right? Like, you just got so much adrenaline going. But in practice, it's not so. So, yeah, great points there. Michael wanted to know, when we talk about high school goalies that are smaller, or even youth goalies for that matter, does the dynamic arc, does it make sense still? We looked at Dylan Ward above the 6-foot crossbar. We looked at Blazier and above the 6-foot crossbar. If you're 5'2", does it still make sense to do that dynamic arc and come out and play a little higher at times? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that is, if you had to draw it up, I would say that is the biggest advantage or biggest, time you would want to do it. The reason I say that is by stepping up, you are taking up more cage. And if you're smaller, you're already not taking up a ton of cage relative to, I'm not a super tall, I'm 5'11", right? I'm not taking up as much cage as, my 6'5" Team Canada counterpart or my 6'3" Team Canada counterpart and Brett Dobson, Dylan Ward. But by stepping up, I've made up for a little bit of that, right? So I could step up a little bit, and now I'm taking up more of the cage. So even if I'm smaller, right, same thing applies. I step up, I'm now taking up more cage. And like I said, if you're stepping up and you're smaller, I can guarantee you they're probably throwing some more balls high, and that's where you can keep your stick up, try to gobble up everything high. And, unfortunately, you can still go down low with your stick, but I would recommend maybe using your feet, using your legs a little bit more.
Love it. Yeah, love it. 100% agree. Yeah, I think even as a smaller goalie, of which I am, I'm 5'8", right? So, you've got to make up for that lack of size by coming out a little bit and being a little bit bigger. And then you also move less, have to move less to reach a shot that's destined to the corner. But, yeah, great question. I'm going to try and answer all the questions about arc, about arc play, and then we'll hit as many as we can that are a little bit about other topics. Bob wanted to know, is there a specific arc you recommend for a goalie that has tracking issues to help them improve their tracking skills?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I again, you want to be able to kind of shift and play between each. But if you're someone who really struggles to track the ball and you want to play to the best of your ability, your probable best move, right? Let's say you're not afraid of the ball, you're not afraid of getting hit, but you struggle tracking it on outside shots. What you can do, and one thing that Dylan Ward told me was part of the reason he plays the high arc is because seeing the ball, because he played so much indoor, he's not used to seeing the ball for so long on deep shots. So he would rather just step up and turn it into a 10-yard shot where he's just snapping and reacting, right? He's flopping and throwing a leg out like he's back in the box. So if you think about it, if you're a goalie who struggles with the ball, what you could do if you pop out to that high arc a little bit more, now you're turning it a little less into, okay, outside shot, I've got to make sure I'm tracking it, seeing it the whole way, to, okay, he's not as good of a tracker, but he's really good positionally. If he can work on not necessarily always playing it, but popping up to that high arc, it'll give him less time to have to track the ball, and now you're getting into more of the positioning and the angles game. But I would say this, if you're not willing to or not willing, but if you're not the best at tracking the ball, you can make up for it with the positioning and angles, but you got to be willing to get hit a little bit too. Especially down low with the legs and with the hands. That's part of the reality of, if you want to play the high arc, watch Dylan Ward play, watch Blaze play, they get hit. And it's an awesome thing for your teammates, and you don't have to do it every day in practice. You can use softballs to train, but if you want to, if you're not necessarily the best ball tracker, you could pop up and play that high arc more, but you might get hit a little bit more as well.
Love it. Bob, does that make sense? Hopefully Bob's still with us. Throw a thumbs up in the chat if you could. Next question is a very specific question Andrew Inch has. What type of arc should I use on a fast break?
A fast break, so let's say a shooter's coming in wide open. This is not the time to pop up to that high arc. So anytime the shooters are in a spot where they have time and they can move, right? Because, I mean, let's say this chair is the goal, and I pop up and I jump up to the high arc. That's great if you as the camera are stuck. But as soon as you take one step this way, now you have all that goal to look at. Does that make sense? So what you gain coming up on a high arc is great if they're stationary, but they take one step and they have all that goal to look at. Versus, right, if I'm down lower, they take one step, I'm still taking up a lot of the goal. So I would recommend that's a spot where I would recommend maybe that positional baiting. I'm going to shade over to this side, and you're going to have to beat me here, and I'll pop across. Or this side, you're going to have to beat me here, and I'll pop across. And if you shoot it right at me, I'll eat it. So sort of a quick explainer of, that's a time where I would definitely want to sit again and try to do more of that positional baiting versus popping up to that high arc. Because if a shooter can move, that's where they get catch you out of positioning and pop an easy one in. That's where you probably want to sit back and play a little bit more deep in the goal. But if they're stuck in one spot, that's where you can get out and really trap them.
Yeah, and the other thing too, and I think I've heard Dylan Ward say this, is, a lot of it is a feeling thing for him. Like we mentioned, there's certain times when you might want to come out, low angle shot is imminent. You know the guy's going to shoot, right? Based on his body language, very low probability he's going to pass, low angle, I'm coming out. But, as you get more and more reps, you get more and more experience, you start to develop a feel for these type of things. And this would be a great situation, right? Right, Coach?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's one thing in all this stuff I'm talking about. This is stuff you want to train, but when you get to practice drills or the game day, you can't be thinking about it. Your goal is to do it so much in your training, you just have a great feel for, this is the time to do it. Because if you're thinking, okay, maybe I'll go, the ball's in the goal. The game moves too fast. But if you train it, you're not even, like you mentioned, the feeling, right? We joke with our goalies all the time, is the best goal, you have the best game of your life. Everyone in this chat has had an awesome game. And if you got in the car after and your parents go, what were you just thinking? Like, what was your mindset going in? And you're like, I don't know. Like, I just blacked out. It all happened. Like, I blacked out and I just played really well. Like, we want to be playing in that state while incorporating this stuff. And that only happens through training and just familiarity with it. When Tom Brady goes and he recognizes and he sees a deep ball, he's not analyzing all these small parts. Okay, now I can throw that deep ball. When he's live in the game and it's moving that fast, he's stepping back, he sees Mike Evans, he throws the ball, right? And that's sort of the level that you want to get. You just got to, develop and train.
Good question from Shane. So, do these arc principles apply to women's lacrosse? What do you think Coach Meg Taylor would say about this dynamic arc play?
Absolutely, they definitely apply. And I think the biggest thing that you see in women's lacrosse that we've talked about is the struggle is there's so much motion in women's lacrosse. You need to make sure that they are trapped in a spot. Because what you'll see in the college game, and it happens, like it happens to the best goalies. It happened to Dylan Ward, I showed you. But like I said, you step up, they take one step around, free goal, right? There's so much motion that you probably can't incorporate it as much. But if the girls are in a spot where they have to shoot the ball, and they can't move around very much, they can't hit a hitch and go, they can't hit a move and move around you, that's an awesome time to do it. So I think it's great for the women's game. Again, it's just another type of for even an 8-meter, right? Maybe you don't want to go to the high arc, but I mentioned shifting to one side or shifting to the other. I had my girlfriend out. We were shooting the other day. There's a field right by us, and I had her. She was a defender in college, but I made her shoot 8 meters on me because I just wanted to like see what it feels like, and it's really close. And I just found myself, I was like, I'm going to move over. I'm going to make her shoot at my stick because if she just gets to shoot at this whole net, like, this is really hard. So, or like, I'm going to move over here. I'm going to make her shoot back to my off stick. This is so difficult for me as a goalie. So I think that sort of positional side to side, right? Versus then when I jumped up on the high arc, she just started running in and just dumped it right past me because she knew that she could do that. So it was kind of funny that this happened. Like, yeah, humble brag that I have a girlfriend. Yeah. But it was funny that, like, we did that. I wasn't really thinking about this presentation, but I would say, that 8 meter is a perfect example of more of the positional type stuff.
Yeah, I've interviewed a lot of women's lacrosse goalies, and we talk about that 8 meter. Yeah, and it's, especially if you know that the girl's going to rip it right from the 8, like she's not going to run in, that taking a step out or shading to one side can really start to get into those mind games, and you can give the goalie the advantage and not the shooter, because you're right, close.
Exactly.
Couple questions about box and field. This is pretty much a field lacrosse goalie summit, but a couple folks were asking about, as a box goalie, does this concept of arc play apply as well? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say box goalie is, a lot of it comes down to positioning. It's similar to hockey, right, in terms of the padding and how much goal there is to shoot at. So for them, it really comes down to positioning, more so than it might in field. So when we talk about, them popping up to the high arc, taking up more of the goal, if you watch, I think Evan was putting it in the chat, but Dylan Ward, when he plays box, where he also won a championship, he pops up to that high arc and box all the time, right? Or he might give up a little bit more to one side. Now with box, because the goal is smaller, you're talking about inches, but this same exact stuff still applies. Obviously applied a little bit differently, but it all still applies.
Yeah, love it. Cool. I think that's the most of the art questions. Let's get to some general questions. We'll try to hit as many as we can. Abigail wants to know, how do I read where the shooter is going to shoot?
Yeah, I think that's, a little bit of a loaded question, but I think, you obviously have the shoulders. Every goal is a little bit different. You'll hear some goalies who are all about, I look for the ball in the stick. Other goalies will say, I just kind of look at their whole body and it gives me a little tell and I don't really think about it. The ball comes out. And other goalies will tell you, look at the eyes. I don't think there's necessarily one right answer there, because I've heard some awesome goalies have completely different theories. But in terms of if you really want to figure out where that ball is going, watch the shooter pass the ball. So we talk about hips, eyes, and shoulders. If their shoulders dip, the ball's probably going low. Right? If they're up here, it's probably going high. That's the basics, right? Maybe the elbow, too. You can look at their eyes. But watch the shooters pass before the game as they go through their lines. And as you get older in lacrosse, you'll start to see it more. But if the ball sits in that stick and they go to pass, and let's say she has to pull it back here and then pop it out, like you see with some of these gate sticks nowadays, is you realize that stick has a little bit more width. So if she's pulling it up high, the ball might sit in the pocket as she's shooting and end up low. And then if she pulls it low and pulls it up, it's going to go high. So it's a little bit like the plane is going to move a little bit, and it's the same thing in men's lacrosse where, for example, like, looking at a guy like Ryan Brown, like you pretty much, you can watch the film of him and you're going to see that the ball changes planes. If his stick is down low, it probably has to come up high, because his stick holds the ball a little bit more. You can see that when he's passing around before the game. Same with Lyle Thompson. Like the ball he doesn't have a lot of whip, so the ball kind of flows out of his stick. So he's a guy, when he puts his shoulders low and he shoots low, probably staying low. And that's why you'll see him shoot high to high a lot and low to low a lot. And it's not changing planes quite as much. So that's something you can I know we talk about elbows, shoulders, eyes. Mm-hmm. You can also pay attention to how their sticks shoot as well.
Yeah, love it. Great thorough answer. Yeah, I always like to look at the shoulders. That for me was, and sort of the stick movement. And if they want to do one of those ones where like they, point the shoulders down and it looks like it's going to go low and then they end up shooting high, like you got me. You're going to beat me on that. But that's a tough shot. It's a tough shot. So, love it. All right, Jason, I've always been amazing at my high shots, even mid shots, but I found being 6'3", 210, trouble with committing to low shots unless I move forward on a shot. What do you recommend I could do to help utilize that high arc as a weapon while being able to commit to those low shots without an issue?
Yeah, so again, like if you pop up to that hierarchy, your advantage with your size is you're going to have bigger legs, so you'll be able to, as you step up, right, there's going to be, if you drop to a knee, right, there's obviously less to shoot at, or if you kind of drop down like that, however you want to play it. I would say tied into this, one thing that we've noticed is taller guys who struggle down low, I've often been told, will get down lower in your stance, and it looks a lot like that. It's really uncomfortable. I hated trying to play in a super squat position. Well, what you could do is in your stance, if you're back, push your butt back so you're more like this, and now it's easier for me to fall down and get to that low shot versus having to drop everything like that, which is really difficult. Like I just fell even trying to do it right now. So you can move your chest forward in your stance, and you'll notice my stick's lower too. So if you're really struggling down low as a tall guy, I would recommend you don't have to change anything else about your stance. Push your butt back, get your chest a little bit lower, and now it's easier for you to get down to those low shots. That's one change. I don't know if you guys noticed it. I don't even know if he noticed it, but Dylan Ward made a couple of years ago, which he stepped up and he didn't change anything about his stance. His chest went a little bit more forward, and he started eating up low shots that he had been struggling with earlier in the season.
Love it. Love it. Question that just brought up from me. I don't know if anyone's asked this. If they have, we'll mark it off. But, when I watch the Goalie Smith stories, and you guys got these awesome goalies. Like a lot of times you'll see goalies, go down to the butt on low shots. Kind of get that leg in the way and go down to the butt. At what point do you start, like if I'm a young goalie and I'm like, yeah, I want to do that, right? At what point should I start to incorporate that into my game, do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of funny, like we talk about, there's the perfect way to make the save and there's how we want to do it. Like I was out seeing shots this morning. I got a little time where I don't need to be in the office at the SIA, or we didn't have a Goalie Smith thing this morning. So you ideally always want to end up in a spot where you're down, whether your knee's down, whatever it is, you want to get down, but you want to be able to have your head and chest over the ball so you can control it. And that doesn't involve your butt hitting the ground. The reality is if it's faster for you to just drop and maybe you go back a little bit and your butt ends up hitting the ground, at the end of the day, like that first thing I said, you got to chase saves more than anything else. So is it perfect? No. Am I going to try to, in my warm-up, be better? But when we throw the goalies into that Goalie Smith environment and they've got Truett Sunderland, top recruit, shooting on them, if they drop back to their butt but they're still making the save, at the end of the day, I'd rather they make the save. So it's I would say, yeah, it's not perfect. Ideally, I want to have my head and chest over the ball every time. But this morning, like some of the balls, which is the only way I can go fast, was when I fell back on my butt. So. It's not perfect, but it kind of is what it is at that point. You got to make the save. So,
chase saves, not perfection, right?
Exactly.
Alexis says, sometimes when I see an attacker bigger than me coming in, I get scared and I sort of hide by the pipe, and then I struggle getting back to the center and end up really out of position. How do I fix that?
I would say the high arc is one. I talked about taking control back. But just like giving up a little bit more, like you mentioned hiding on the pipe, right? So maybe instead, what you can do is just take a little hop step over to one side. And now you're like, okay, well, you're going to have to shoot here, and I've got you, and I'll step, and I'll make a big save, right? So a little bit of taking control back. You mentioned getting scared. Like for me, sometimes if I'm in a spot where maybe I'm like just I'm not confident, right? And Dylan Ward talks about not confident, like stepping up. And maybe it's not stepping up to a crazy hierarchy, but hopping up a little bit and just showing like, I'm not scared, I'm going to step up a little bit here. Can also be a mental thing as well. So maybe for you, just try taking, instead of a foot upfield, maybe you take like 2 inches up the field and you jump up a little bit. And sometimes it'll just make you feel a little bit more powerful when that big player's coming down.
Yeah, love it. And like you said, say something to yourself, like, bring it, let's go.
Yeah.
Get a lot of it is mental, I think. And when you repeat sort of a positive mantra of like, come on, bring it, right? Then all of a sudden, like, even me just saying that now, I felt a little something, right? Like, let's go. I'm ready to make that save. I'm not feeling scared. So.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. Yeah, love it. Jason says, I'm a new goalie. How can I speed up my steps? Speed up stepping to the ball.
Speeding up steps, I would say, that's something where as many reps as you can get as possible is great. But also, one thing that we've noticed and sort of been talking about is as you step, what slows us down sometimes is if you try to step where your foot always ends up pointing forward every time, it can be really uncomfortable and not super fast. So as you step, don't be afraid of opening up your leg a little bit, right? As you watch all the pro goalies, they're stepping and their foot's ending up out on an angle, right? It doesn't need to be flat. You can still, if you're a goalie who loves to step on that 45 degree, like, many people argue about nowadays, right? If you want to step forward, that's great. But notice how my foot is still pointed out. My hips are a little bit pointed out. I'm still square, right? But my foot, as I step, is pointing that way. That's one thing that can help you and make your steps feel a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more natural and more athletic, and a little bit quicker, hopefully, as well.
Yeah, love it. Chris Brown, what arc do you use? Drake, Dynamic Arc.
Yeah, I definitely was like a mid-arc in college. And again, this is something that, because, I'm always learning, I've been trying to go and just even in the boys' sessions, popping up, trying out those high arcs, and didn't get a ton of minutes, but when I was in Alabama this summer with Team Canada, ended up popping out to the high arc. I wasn't even, again, I didn't think I was ever going to do it in a game, and then just we were playing Japan. Guy ended up in a spot where it was a perfect time, and I didn't even think about it. I just popped up to the top of the crease and made a save with my leg. So again, like if you train it, you'll just kind of find yourself doing it in the game. And I would say, yeah, dynamic arc now. Definitely, I was a 5-step guy in college. If you pull up the film.
Yeah, love it. Taylor Campbell, on a one-on-one doorstop save, would it be better to step up on a high arc to cut the angles off, or stay closer to the goal and react?
It all depends on the situation, as much as I hate to give that answer. But if the shooter's in a spot where they can't move, they're stationary, and let's say there's a defender closing out, they have to get the shot off. It can be an awesome time to pop up on the high arc, because now they have nothing. But let's say no defenders are around, and they're wide open. All it takes is one fake and a step, and they beat you if you're on that high arc. So if they're in a spot where they got nothing else they can do, I think that's an awesome thing. Give them nothing to shoot at. If they're in a spot where they have a couple options and they can put it around you if you step up, maybe you hold back and you just worry about taking up the cage, reading them and beating them.
Yeah. There's certain plays where, when I was playing, what I love to do, when you saw like a crease attackman's back, right, and you knew like if they feed the crease, like he's gonna catch and turn to shoot, just based on the play, right? There's no time to throw a fake because the guys are gonna crash on him. In that situation, when I see that feed coming in, I love to come up and sort of surprise him, because then he turns around, right? He's like, "Whoa, this guy's right on top of me," and then just match sticks, and it's such an easier save.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a situation where it would be awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So it is very situational. I think when you watch those, the Lax Goalie Rat save edits and kind of watch different goalies play, you'll start to see like, oh, that goalie just came up right here. What was the situation, right? And kind of take notes and then try that in your own game. But great question. Great question, Taylor. Thank you. Julia wanted to know, do you have any drills or tips to make you stop flinching?
I would say I mentioned the softballs, and I kind of showed those that you can buy on Amazon, but those are great. Like so I just broke my right thumb, and then a month later, my first practice back, or first time training again, I broke my left hand. So I was a little bit timid coming back, and then the softballs were an awesome way for me to kind of get back into it, because the last 2 times I was on the field, I broke the bone. So I was definitely like flinching more than I ever had in my whole life. I never really had too many injuries before that related to a ball. So to get myself kind of back into it and out of that zone, I just had a friend take a bucket of softballs and just shot as hard as he could. And because they weren't soft, I just started reacting, and if it hit me, it was okay. I wasn't in pain. And then next thing I knew, when I hopped in and we were back to hard balls, I wasn't flinching anymore, and I was back to just kind of attacking the ball. So using those soft white balls can kind of mentally get you back into it, if you find yourself flinching a little bit.
Yeah, I like that. Drake, we'll have to get you hooked up with one of the sponsors. The Evan makes the thumb guards, the Guardian gear.
I know.
Splints. So we'll see if we can send you one.
And Warrior just came out with those big goalie gloves, the QS. So they sent me a pair. I had them on this morning.
All right, there you go. They're a sponsor as well. Yeah, the new Nemi QS. We're giving away 5 pairs. It's gonna be awesome. Julia, great question. There's also a drill that I've done with really young goalies, right at the very beginning, where they're behind a chain link fence, and just seeing shots, right? And that's, you're not going to get hit because it's going to hit the fence, but I'm now just able to relax and get used to that stick movement, right? Because sometimes it's just that aggressive stick movement that can cause a goalie to sort of like, get that fear response. And so just getting that out of your system I find that to be a good drill as well. But the softballs is where it's at, if you ask me. All right, Danny Weiss wanted to know, can you explain that up the hash situation again? So during your presentation, you were talking a little bit about up the hash shots. Could you kind of quickly cover that again?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's when a shooter is running upfield, so let's say this is the goal, this chair, and they're running up the field and then turning to shoot it. So like think Rob Pannell, his kind of signature is running up from behind the goal. So a lot of times their head is turned, like Coach Damon mentioned, if their head is turned, that's a good time where as they turn to shoot, right now they can look at you, and if you're upfield, it can freak them out a little bit.
I love it. Well, we are at time. What do you guys think about that? Throw a thanks in the chat if you could to Coach Drake Porter. I know we didn't get to all the questions, but I'll go ahead and take a screenshot here, and I can shoot them over to you, Coach. Or if anyone really wants their question answered, email help@laxgoalierat.com. Real quick, if you guys haven't done it already, I'm gonna do it right now. Take a selfie of yourself, because we'd love to see you. You guys get to see us. We do not get to see you. Hang on a second, Coach. Let me get it in selfie mode here. Love it. Coach Drake Porter, thank you so much. Where should we send folks if they want to check you out, see what Goalie Smith has coming up this summer, or this winter, I should say? Where should we go?
GoalieSmith.lacrosse on Instagram, lacrosse on Instagram, GoalieSmith WinslaX on Instagram. And then if you can buy merch on the website, GoalieSmith.com. Get this hoodie, get this hat. We got
and the shorts. Show up those shorts.
And the shorts.
Yeah, those are pretty badass shorts. Yep, love it.
And then we got camps coming up throughout kind of East Coast, West Coast through January, February, and then big camps in the summer. And if you're in the Baltimore area, we also do local sessions as well. Boys, girls, college, high school, middle school, everything. And then if you want to watch Messiah University kill it this year, some great goalie play, hopefully. That as well, and the championship series February 21st. So yeah,
love it, man. Well, I'll be watching. Coach Drake, thank you for kicking us off. Again, take a selfie, tag myself at LaxGoalieRat and GoalieSmith.lacrosse on Instagram, and email help@laxgoalierat.com. Just say I posted. That will get you entered into the giveaways. We're off to a strong start. Coach Drake, thank you so much. We'll be back. We had to reschedule Mac Gill sessions, so we'll be back at 6 p.m. Eastern with Owen McElroy.